Greetings, everyone. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, and living life, and loving life. If you were with us last night, we had a little inconvenience during the stream where I was talking about bifurcation and hypothecation. So I had to edit that out, and we are back tonight with hypothecation. So let's get into it with if I can find it here. See if we do it this way. There we go. Okay. Double check, make sure everything's good. You guys let me know if there's any issues. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat tonight. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and please enjoy. And the link is down there for anybody who wants to come join the panel. So when we look at hypothecation, definition, and how it works with examples. Hypothecation occurs when an asset is pledged as collateral to secure a loan. Now, if you guys remember that state's vital statistics jurisdiction chart that we've gone over, it shows how that birth clerk enters into the birth registry a certain document that they have mom sign. That is the actual asset, and she signs it as informant. And it is a certain form, and that it is signed by two other agents of the hospital and the state. Under Iowa trust law, that's an instrument known as a signed instrument. Thereby, it's a trust instrument. And this is where that is pledged as collateral to secure loans to the local community where that birth was originated through that document. So it could actually be a foreign trade zone somewhere else, but it's going to be connected to that original document sitting there at the county registrar's office at the county where one was born. That's the original asset. And it's supposedly pledged in a usufruct system where now the county registrar holds it in custody for the beneficiary when they come forth to claim it. It's a legal title. The owner of the asset does not give up title, possession, or ownership rights, such as income generated by the asset. And again, this is where that document, as an asset, is supposed to have a financial statement of intent to use that asset for whatever means, whether it be for productive use or investment. Hypothecation is different from mortgage, lien, or assignment. Hypothecation, double check here, make sure we're still there, everybody's here with me. And hypothecation occurs when an asset is pledged as collateral to secure a loan. So as you see in that chart, the documents, the document at the county registrar doesn't have any value until it's matched up with the birth certificate. You look at that chart and you'll see how it's the birth certificate that's matched up with that informant document that allows for funding called the loan. The owner of the asset does not give up title, possession, or ownership rights, such as income generated by the asset. So you can give up the title and possession in certain situations if it's abandoned. Somebody will hold on to it until that rightful owner comes forth. This is the military holding in custody of property in abeyance. The term is abeyance, ABEYANCE, and they're holding it until a rightful owner comes forth and makes a valid claim. That's it. And again, that informant document is the one that has your given and family name on it. Hypothecation occurs most commonly in mortgage lending, where the home serves as collateral, but the bank does not have any claim on it, on cash flows or income generated from it, unless the borrower defaults. So again, in this usufruct system, you're working with a hypothecation and bifurcation where there's a splitting of that legal title, and a portion of it is put in custody of the state. Now, mom is given a copy of that informant statement. She can also acquire a birth certificate as well, just like you can, as a valid claim to your inherent legacy. That's technically your stuff. And again, once you collect up or capture or salvage, whatever term you want to use, those titles and merge them with equitable title, you are the estate. That's where the equitable title resides or exists. And so when you collect up that legal title and it's merged with you, the equitable title, the estate, possessing the living will and expressing the living will in living trust, that's what this is all about. So when it comes to that borrower defaults, you're the creditor, as the scripture says, but through this bifurcation, hypothecation, everything, those roles are switched around. You're considered the borrower, and until you study to shew thyself worthy enough, you're going to be in default because you have no way to prove that you're not. That's the lack of the knowledge. If you don't understand what they're doing in those courts and how it's all an administration, and you have to be first subject to the administration by some kind of contract in order to be required to perform publicly in an open courtroom, then you've been deceived. You've been indoctrinated into believing that you're of the class of what's his name, Jimmy Carrey, in that movie that put his life in public view of the world. That's what you've been indoctrinated to believe, is that you're supposed to go out and talking about your private issues in a public arena. Then I urge you to think again. Things are all backwards and upside down. Margin lending in brokerage accounts is another common form of hypothecation found in securities trading and investing. In case you guys haven't been paying attention, I've been talking about this documentation that I got from the local court that obviously substituted or converted, however you like to term it, the last name of a legal construction for a legal presumption was converted or translated or substituted with a firm name, as if though I was operating as a brokerage firm making an investment, when that was not so. That's the unlawful conversion. That's not giving full disclosure. It's very hard to find this stuff and then turn around. When you do, what are you going to connect it to? So you end up doing 7 years of research and you show how it's all connected, because see, the identification is very important. When it comes to the obligor is identified by a number that is attached to a firm name. The number that you were given on that social security card to use for your benefit is a beneficiary number, and it's attached to the beneficiary name. When they convert that information for their own benefit, that's the non-disclosure. Once you realize that and figure that out and can explain it right in front of them and let them know that your yay is your yay and your nay is your nay, and you're not going to let them pull that kind of shit behind some magical curtain anymore. This ain't the land of Oz. It's time to return home. Tired of it, full-grown adults not being able to admit to simple truths that are right in front of them. It's amazing that you can explain, like I said last night in the high cash value video, you can tell a banker the law 12 USC 411 that they're supposed to follow that says those Federal Reserve notes are for advances from Federal Reserve to Federal Reserve institutions by Federal Reserve agents and for no other purpose. And in that purpose, in the advance to give them to those institutions, it's for the payment of taxes and certain obligations. I hold no such certain obligations, or do I owe the duty to pay taxes prepaid. You show me where I'm first involved in a contract that is then assessed taxes to be paid, that we can then go forth and move into prepaying the insurances or gathering the surety bonds, and then go forth into actually committing to the contract activities. Everything has an order, folks. So let's go back to it. In that hypothecation, like I said, in them courts, this is exactly what they're doing. It's a margin lending in brokerage accounts known as firms, brokerage firms, and they're considering you an investor, and therefore you're the obligor by number and name. And the name is actually a firm name, and the obligor number is actually the beneficiary number, the Social Security number converted to the obligor without dashes. And that is a hypothecation found in securities trading and investing. And if it's done without your knowledge, and then they turn around and hold it against you and force you pay bonds and stuff to get out of jail and this and that, even though you weren't a voluntary defendant violating personal jurisdiction requirements, then they certainly have a great deal of penalties they can deal with. It's called securities fraud, people. And I will speak boldly as I ought to. Unless you can prove that it's not, I find that very hard to believe, because I don't know that anybody even knows this stuff, yet alone will continue to listen to me and believe it. So again, I urge you, do not believe me. Do not believe your neighbor. Do not believe the government, for crying out loud. Do not believe your mother. Do your own research so you know. If this isn't good enough research for you, or you need more time, please go back over this information, read it again, and expand upon that information. Again, like I said, when you're researching stuff, don't click on that first link and let that be the extent of your research. Keep digging deeper until you find out exactly what's going on, so you can correct the things that you're entering in error, instead of continuing in entering those errors. You do yourself no good, nor do you do the next generation any good. Hypothecation in mortgages. Hypothecation occurs most commonly in mortgage lending. A mortgage is a type of loan that is secured by an underlying property. Now, in the bank, in the housing industry, where you're buying in all these houses and everything, what you're doing is you're trading the underlying property for an overlying property. The overlying property is the house that's patently clear and observable on the land. However, those are merely premises. It's the actual structure itself. You never bought the land. You cannot buy and sell the land. The land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine, and ye are strangers and sojourners with me. So in that possession of all the land, in all the lands of your possession, ye shall grant a redemption. It's a matter of correcting the record so they understand that it's just the premises, the house, the materialistic things that are on the land. You have priority use and possession of the land, and they can have their property back. That's the collateral. Now, if you want to live on that land for the rest of your time in a tent starting out until you build your own home in your own way, then so be it. This is the way I believe this system is supposed to work. They only have title to the premises being the actual materials that they use to build the house and install the wiring, the windows, the furniture, whatever. Those are premises. That's the house. That's the thing you supposedly swapped as collateral, underlying and overlying. You swap the pledge collateral, which is the documentation, in place of the property that is overlying, and that's that house. That's the hypothecation. The borrower technically owns the house, but because the house is pledged as collateral, the mortgage lender has the right to seize the house if the borrower cannot meet the repayment terms of the loan agreement. Again, the loan agreement is false because they did not process a loan as they're supposed to process a loan. They again went to the discount window at the Federal Reserve, got a check, deposited in a cloned account, and then turned around and sold the promissory note, the original pledge collateral as the underlying property in that swap for the overlying property, the house. So they've already gotten paid twice. Now they're demanding you to pay the loan. That is no longer a loan, but an insurance installment payment plan. Ask them how come it's not actually paying down on the loan. You're just paying insurance premiums. Auto loans are similarly secured by the underlying vehicle. Again, the documentation was swapped for the underlying vehicle, which is actually the overlying property. It's the one that everybody holds in the material view as the legal possession thing that you get to acquire through the legal title of the possessory thing. Unsecured loans, on the other hand, do not work with hypothecation because there is no collateral. Again, the asset known to be the thing collateralized in their documentation has no financial statement of intent from mom. That statement of live birth has no financial statement of intent handwritten by mom to go ahead and pledge that document as an asset as a matter of a letter of credit so that they could be prepaying things that they need in the future. It was never done. It was established as a legal fiction known as a presumption of the facts presented to the court until otherwise rebutted. There is no collateral to claim in the event of default. So I want to ask everybody, if you own nothing and you have no collateral, what is their claim? If there are no assets, no collaterals, what is their claim? And if there are no assets and no collaterals, and they do place a claim, are they going to have it collateralized with assets on the other side? Or is it just going to be paperwork that they want you to sign to release your personal services of performing the functions of a public office so that they can benefit from you doing Hey, see, that's where the swap happens, and it happens psychologically. And when you learn this stuff, you learn how to preemptively rebut that stuff psychologically. And I guarantee you're going to run across the same problems I do. Trying to assert that you're not a United States citizen, that has to be corrected. That you're not a resident, that has to be corrected. That you're not going to hypothecate things. You're not going to bifurcate things. This is the asset, me. I am the estate. I am the as set, and I fear not, for I have been redeemed. He has called me by thy name. I am his. He spoke he commanded and it was done. He spake and it stood fast. It was already set as is. What is done is what ought to be done. There is nothing new under the sun. That's the as set. So let's get back to it. When we think about the claim in the event of default, we're talking about a seizure of property, as hypothecation provides security to the lender because of the collateral pledged by the borrower. Now, if the bank cannot make loans because they have no assets to lend, then where are they getting the asset to say that you are the borrower of the asset or the borrower on claim of collateral to the asset? See, they're making the collateral claim to the asset. That's that signature on that promissory note. They made the collateral claim on it that if you abandon it, they get to do what they want with it. And they did exactly that. Then when they did that, that was after they'd already gone to the discount window and got the credits written out in a check form and deposited in a cloned account. It is easier to secure a loan, and the lender may offer a lower interest rate than on an unsecured loan. And this is why it's important to understand what you're doing in securitizations and what securitizing things is all about. What is it to securitize something, and what is it you're securitizing? Are you securitizing the asset? No, you're securitizing the documentation known as the collateral, wherein there's contractual terms and negotiations for the transfer of said assets if the contract falls in default against one or other party. And that means all parties, again, in contract form, have to place up, guess what? Equal consideration. That's the assets that are involved in the contracting. If you're not involved in the contracting, then you don't put your assets up for collateral, because that would mean you're putting them up for public use, and you want to keep them for private use, and therefore they're not collateralized. Ain't none of your business. Keep it out of their business. Monetary systems. You do not use your assets as collateral. You use your imagination, and you become a content creator, and you write things out and you sell your story. Like Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. Every last one of you's got a unique story. Just saying. So let's continue on. And before we do, I want to again thank everybody for your support. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There are PayPal links down below for anybody who wants to share some love. And the link is there for anybody that wants to come join the panel. So it is easier to secure a loan, and the lender may offer a lower interest rate than on an unsecured loan. Again, there's that interest rate. Where's that interest rate? And why is there an interest rate related to the bank and not going to the interest of the United States on the obligation and the principal? See, the United States holds an interest on both the obligation and to the principal for his initial investment in the state, which the state is supposed to communicate with the United States through the depositing and pooling to get a match funding in return. But there are certain unregistered securities that they get away with because they get to pool them in their own name and securitize them that way. The hypothecation through bifurcation. So, hypothecation in investing is the only place you do it. It's got, like I said earlier, it's got to be securitized. It's got to have an asset. That means an investment with the asset. Margin lending in brokerage accounts is another common form of hypothecation. When an investor trades on margin, they're borrowing money from the brokerage to do so. So what happens in the court registry investment system is somebody makes a claim. They enter the investment and borrow money from the brokerage to do so. So they put forth a value in a bond language. Okay? Legalese, court language, bid bond, performance bond, payment bond, setup. Okay? This is to borrow money to place a bid. It's just like going into a casino house, and instead of borrowing the money, you hypothecate a certain asset for another asset, known as Federal Reserve notes for house chips. Now you get to use those house chips in usufruct, and if you lose all those chips, the house doesn't have to give you your Federal Reserve notes back. If you win, you could take them back to the house, and now the house has to match you fund for fund, dollar for dollar, chip for chip. Are you catching on? The real world is nothing but a big gamble. And until you learn how the gambling is done, you're never going to learn how to hypothecate properly so you can always come out on top. Until then, you're always going to be abused and used. This can allow them to leverage their existing account balances to make larger investments and potentially net larger profits on the sale of securities. And again, it's the signed instruments that are securitized. Those are instruments in trust. That's why every last one of these corporate entities are supposed to be dealing with certain laws organized under the United States, as well as the Securities Exchange Commission and the Postal Regulatory Commission and the Military Commission. The type of hypothecation can be risky, however. When an investor chooses to buy on margin or sell short, excuse me, or sell short, they are agreeing that those securities can be sold if necessary if there is a margin call. The investor owns the securities in their account, but the broker can sell them if they issue a margin call that the investor cannot meet to cover the investor's losses. So when you go to the store and you're using these fiat devices or fiat currencies and credit devices, as we spoke of yesterday in cash value, one is one thing, one is another. They're considered of substitutional values. So you go out to the store, you buy something with your credit card. They give you a piece of paper in return. That's fiat currency again, folks. Now that receipt, again, under abeyance, you've got property that belongs to the United States military construct known as fiat currency, wherein you were issued a receipt that was caused to be issued by a commanding officer known as a clerk at that store. Okay, that clerk was commanded to give you a receipt under the military laws of the United States in her employment, no matter what stage, no matter what rank, grade, or anything. It's called employment, and it's a presumption through the use of the legal name that she used on the employment investment document. Okay, are you catching on? She signed that document. It's an instrument of trust. Now she's operating as the trustee in everything, and known as an investor that can't cover the investor's losses. And she's doing so by acting as the broker, using somebody else's property, somebody else's security. The Social Security account created that person. That's their securitization that needs to be required. They got you signing their instruments for them. That's known as leasing your personal services to do their paperwork. Okay? The broker can sell them if they issue a margin call. This is what you're doing every time you sign a document. You're selling it. Oops. Come on. I'm getting all these ads. Okay. So this can be costly for the investor because it can amplify losses well beyond the initial investment made. So say you spent $350 to register that car. It's now a motor vehicle because you registered it. And you also had to pay the state $25 for a license. And it's a pretty decent car since you have to pay $350 for the registration. So your insurance is going to be up there. So you're spending at least $120 a month at 12 months a year. That's that's $1,400. So we'll call it $1,500. And then you're probably spending at least another $3,000 on maintenance stuff. How much do you think it's really valued at, folks? How much do you think it's really going to appreciate if you keep using it for performing the functions of public office and not creating some kind of expense report, as well as shipping labels and points of origin and final destinations and the products that you're you're buying and selling, or the services that you're exchanging, whatever. How come there's none of those records to prove all of this? You see where we're going? Your initial investment is so far beyond what you're actually pulling out of it, because you're not actually invested in anything but doing what the state tells you, and that's paying all these fines, fees, penalties, insurance, and taxes and shit. Are you really using it to perform the functions of public office and getting paid well to do so? See, where's your benefit? So remember, we talked about prepaid insurance. It goes for a certain period of time, and then you're supposed to receive a benefit. So if you pay insurance prepaid for the month, and then that month expires and you never got in an accident, and therefore you never received benefit of them paying out an insurance claim to cover your ass for your stupidity, whatever you think the benefit is, did you really receive any benefit? If there's no benefit evidenced in the record, then how is that real? How is that possible? How does that follow the rule of law in prepaid insurances, where you're supposed to receive a benefit after that period? But no, they turn around and tell you, now you got to prepay for the next month. Otherwise, we're going to cut your insurance. No, you're supposed to roll that payment over that you already prepaid and haven't benefited from it. And therefore, your remedy is to benefit from it, even though you haven't benefited from it yet. So it's a rollover. Since I haven't been able to benefit, then we just roll it over, use it again for the prepayment for the next month, because I never received the benefit as it was supposed to be the first month. That's reason and logic. By their own laws, by their own plain language. Read it, folks. Again, if you find me wrong, please point it out. And be sure to bring an English major, of course. For that reason, it is important to understand how margin trading works. Again, now we're talking about trading rather than buying and selling. Hypothecation could mean for you on a personal level. See, the trading and a hypothecation begins before there's any buying and selling. It's at the beginning, when you're doing the initial investment and making the terms and conditions of the agreement that is then contractually bound to in your personal actions. And that's where actions speak louder than words, folks. You have to realize that if you're going to be walking into those courts and you're going to be opening your mouth, you better know what you're talking about. You better know how to coin your words. Otherwise, just purse your lips. And if you're going to purse your lips, then why even walk in there? Force the issue. Again, my yay is my nay, or my yay is my yay, my nay is my nay. And if you're proven to be a total idiot in the courts, then what's to say that you can't prove yourself to be a total idiot everywhere else? Again, if you're professing that you know this law, I urge you to try to think again. It goes much deeper than you think. And the presumption continues to lie because you keep thinking that you know the law, when all you got to do is rebut it for its impossibilities and inconsistencies. So let's get back at it. Examples of hypothecation agreement. Again, it's part of an agreement known as a contract, but it comes first and foremost. You can't make a contract and then hypothecate. Again, we're talking about the asset. The asset is the base foundation of a securitized contract, securitized agreement. Hypothecation in real estate is most often associated with mortgage loans. Now, remember, as I spoke in regards to these administrative courts and how they operate through the Postal Service, it's the independent and neutral forum within the United States Postal Service, comprising of the the judicial officer, the administrative law judge, and the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals. Okay? So when we're talking about real estate, it's the Postal Service that has the real estate investment trust. And it's the administrative law that deals with the mortgages. Are you catching on? Break time real quick. Please enjoy my intro. I gotta go get a drink. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. So when we start looking at these documents and stuff and realize what's going on, it's much more feasible that we're going to be able to confront them firsthand and foremost with our own beneficial interests involved in them. And therefore, I urge you to consider doing your own research so you can continue to expand on what I'm presenting here so that it is fully comprehensible. Because again, if I'm wrong, please tell me. If anybody out there sees that I'm wrong in this, please tell me. But I believe my interpretation in transliteration, however you want to put it, I'm sure I'm pretty damn close. So a rental property, for example, may undergo hypothecation as collateral against a mortgage issued by a bank. While the property remains collateral, the bank has no claim on rental income that comes in. However, if the landlord defaults on the loan, the bank may seize the property by initiating a foreclosure proceeding. Okay. This is where I'm going to pose that it's important that even as renters, you learn these laws. So that if you do come across one of them landlords, that's a pretty decent guy, pretty decent gal, whoever they are, pretty decent couple, that you can learn how to contract more privately in a usufruct situation where you would now be able to use this rental property rather than for yourself, but maybe to rent it out for a better price to better help him in his payments in return for some kind of consequential benefit at the back end. Okay, kind of like a prepayment situation. This is where we learn how to back each other up in our credit and support systems rather than sitting back and letting somebody falter and fall. Okay, it's by becoming wise to the way these things work so we can help initiate situations where we can start helping others correct the records as they're supposed to be. So, however, if the landlord defaults on the loan, the bank may seize the property by initiating a foreclosure proceeding. So, again, if the renter knows this stuff and he doesn't want the landlord foreclosed on, and he can be part of the equitable remedy, he can become part of the consequential effects and outcomes and benefit himself from it. This is called investing yourself in other people. This is Leviticus 25, verse 25. If thy brother be waxen and poor, and hath sold off some of his property, and one of his kin come along to redeem him, he shall buy back that debt. Okay, that's the rehypothecation. Just like a reinsurance, this is a rehypothecation. It's a reinvestment in the asset, but it comes along by somebody else making a superior investment. Therefore, all parties are willing to sell. Okay. So the use of hypothecation or real estate agreements can offer some reinsurance to lenders who may want to mitigate risk when loaning money. Mitigate risks. They're trying to lessen their risks, so they require a reinsurance. If the borrower doesn't pay for any reason, the bank can potentially recoup some of its losses if it's able to foreclose and then resell the property later. In that sense, hypothecation aids in stabilizing the mortgage lending industry. And I'm going to tell you one of the little secrets about this stabilization here. As we see, it says recoup some of its losses. Now, most times in the foreclosure industry, what happens is somebody gets foreclosed on, say, a $250,000 home, and they've already paid $200,000 on it. Now the bank comes along and forecloses, and all that they're owed is $50,000. Now the bank, not wanting to hold that title very long, now that they've got their $50,000 after they foreclosed and evicted the guy unlawfully and illegally, they turn around and use that that title that they supposedly claim, which isn't there. It's actually held by the county registrar again. So it's not the banks. Okay. And so then we turn around and find out that the bank turns around and resells it for, say, 200,000 at a low market value, so they can recoup their 50,000. Now there's 150,000 surplus value that doesn't belong to them, and it sits in an account because nobody claims it. Guess who it belongs to? The guy that got evicted. Okay, Jack Talcott, you listening? Are you listening, Jack Talcott? Hey, Tarek, why don't you go run with your balls on your chin and tell Jack Talcott the solution? Okay? See, that's how stupid all this panel shit get, guys. The solutions are easy if you know the information, and yet everybody wants to sit there and cry and wait and do release installment plans for another year, 6 years in a row. Why don't you just let them have the motherfucker, reclaim your fucking equity in it, and go somewhere else? Quit playing with the bastards. So let's continue on. Let's not get too personal about it. Hypothecation can also work in favor of borrowers. Again, remember, it's an investment in the asset, and if it's truly your asset, then it must be able to work in favor of the borrower or the lender, because if you're going to be a lender or a borrower, you need to also keep and respect the benefits of the other party. Again, if you're obtaining or of wisdom and wise enough to know the contracts have that equal consideration, equal benefit. It's a must. If you're seeking equity, you must bring equity. If you want a contract, you have to know how to contract. Same damn thing. By entering into this type of agreement, borrowers may find it easier to obtain mortgage loans with a smaller down payment or lower credit score requirements. Why is that? Again, because if the bank has that promissory note and you abandon it and they turn around and sell it after they took it to the discount window and got the check, they now got a check and sold the promissory note again for less than market value. So they still got paid almost twice. And that's well above their 6% that they're supposed to receive in such capital transfers. And yet there is no capital transferred except it was sold off through that bifurcation hypothecation, which is fraud. Then they turn around and again, instead of processing it as a loan, they processed it as an insurance installment plan. And that's why you're paying insurances. Otherwise, the contract would already be over. The bank would be out of it. The old homeowner would already be paid and done and over with. But instead, the homeowner supposedly gets paid. The bank's still involved. You made your payment and nobody's recognizing it. Not only did you make your payment, but they got paid twice on it. That's certainly fraud. That's well over the 6% they're supposed to receive for their transfer duties. They may also be able to qualify for more favorable interest rates, and that's why you get favorable interest rates, because they've already been paid on. They'll say, we'll take a cut in the interest rates just for you, try to make you feel special. Okay? This is how they fluctuate the market and manipulate it. The more people that go in under the premise that they're borrowing, the more the banks are willing to let you cut the interest rate as long as you keep going back to them to borrow. Okay? Hypothecation in real estate is the same as in commercial real estate is the same as it is in residential real estate lending. The borrower will post collateral in order to secure the loan. That's to secure the loan. So it has to come first. That's the promissory note. That's the promissory note that is used to collateralize the loan for the house. Then that is all swapped and you sign another agreement to use the house as collateral. What happened to the original collateral? Oops. So again, an investor who's borrowing to purchase a rental property, such as an apartment building or duplex, would use the property itself as collateral for the loan. This is because you go forth thinking you have to borrow, not realizing that you're actually the creditor. Like I said, when you issue that promissory note, you know how it's supposed to work. What you're doing is you're issuing a promissory note to your own um, discount at the federal drawing window, because you have special drawing rights to draw up such an instrument, to promise to pay just like anybody else, because we have no actual way to pay, because we are the actual asset, and it can be held against us bodily if we fault on such agreement. In other words, if there is no way to pay except a credit system through the conversion of paper documents into a monetary credit, then I have no other way to express it except in a document myself. Why would I use somebody else's document and then sign it, knowing that they're just releasing my personal services to do their paperwork? Why not let them do their paperwork and learn how to do my own, letting my yay be my yay, my nay be my nay? If I can do it, you can do it. It may be tough, but maybe you ought to pull your big boy panties up, huh? Construction loans and commercial real estate work a little differently. Because the property that would otherwise serve as collateral has yet to be built, the borrower would need to provide other property as substitute collateral. Okay? So when the property is already there and you're required to give collateral to securitize a loan to obtain the house, then they've already received the collateral. Don't you get it? The same rule, however, would apply with regard to default. If the borrower fails to pay the loan, the lender could claim ownership of the collateral, not the asset. The collateral, not the asset. The asset is the physical form. The collateral is the documentation. Oh, here we go. Just like we spoke on reinsurance, and I told you earlier about rehypothecation. Here we go. They're going to talk about rehypothecation. Rehypothecation is when banks and brokers use hypothecated collateral as collateral to back their own transactions and trades with their client's agreement. So when you go to the court and you talk to that clerk is a broker, and they use the hypothecated collateral, your legal name, with the social security number attached to that fucking address. And they hypothecate through bifurcation and treat you as a trustee, just like them, as if though you're a clergy, broker, making a equal consideration in that same investment. However, you never get to benefit from it, do you? How is it you get to benefit when you're the ones that paying the fines, fees, penalties, and spending the time in jail and prison? How come it's you're the one that's going through all the drug programs and violence programs and sex programs and stuff like that? How come they're not doing it? Isn't that part of the equal consideration? I believe in contracts, they say equal consideration for equal benefit. And if there is detriment, that too is to be shared. So they're taking that name and number and using it as collateral to back their own transactions and trades in the court registry investment system, enlisting the last name as a firm name, calling you a broker, performing the same similar functions of public office as you did so right in public. In order to secure a lower cost of borrowing or a rebate on fees. This is called rehypothecation. For example, the lender may use an apartment building offered as collateral for a commercial real estate loan as collateral for a new loan. This newly created debt is now a derivative. Rehypothecation, so you're basically just hypothecating the same asset twice. It's kind of like bifurcating it so you can hypothecate it in two different situations. You see what's happening now? Rehypothecation is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Again, I said every last one of those instruments is assigned security, and they have to deal with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Postal Regulatory Commissions as it relates to the contracts that you sign for the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals under the Administrative Law Judge and the Judicial Officer. Banks and lenders must have permission from the owner of the property or assets to do so. So again, if the bank can't make a loan because it actually has no assets and can only hold collateral to the asset, which is the documentation, then how is it the bank can put anything up for an asset as an asset? How is it? Let's take a look at that again. Must have permission from the owner of the property or assets to do this. How is it they're able to do it without your permission? You have to know that it's your assets. If they can't have assets and they can't loan because they have no assets, you should know that you're the one loaning them. How is it you don't understand this yet? This has been the scheme of banking for eons, and this is why Jesus tossed the tables in the temple. They're committing the banking in your temple. They've induced you into believing everything backwards. So let's get back into it and finish up here. How do hypothecation and a mortgage differ? Hypothecation is the pledging of an asset as collateral for a loan without transferring the property's title to the lender. Okay? You're pledging an asset as collateral. So the documentation isn't the title. It's the agreement that if the contract falls through, you can come after me and attain the asset. Okay? It's an if-then thing. It's an insurance itself. It's an assurance. And your word is given full faith and credit in that collateral document. Legal tender. Equally able to negotiate your own instruments. If you're not, again, you should purse your lips. You shouldn't be picking up those pens. In a mortgage, the property purchased is used to secure the loan, but the lender holds the title. The lender holds the title. In a mortgage, the property purchased is hypothecation allows a borrower to hold on to a property while using it as security for a loan. So when you go in and you have rights and responsibilities to that broker, you're laying down the terms of contracts that he is to follow the law. Equity follows the law. Where equities are equal, equity follows the first in line, first in time. My yea be my yea, my nay be my nay. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For to love one another is to fulfill the law. Okay? Outlined in a contract to another party, hypothecation allows a borrower to hold on to property while using it as security for a loan. What is hypothecation versus a lien? Hypothecation, the borrower is allowed to hold the property used as collateral for the loan. The borrower agrees to repay the loan on the condition that if they don't, the lender can claim the property. A lien, however, requires a property owner to satisfy outstanding debts before an underlying property can be refinanced or sold. So say somebody comes in and makes a claim on the house. There's still $50,000 left on it. The owner goes ahead and pays that off. He can't sell it until he pays off that lien. That's what it's doing. It's preventing that homeowner from selling it without paying off that lien. So if somebody's got a $200,000 lien, he's got $50,000 left to pay on it. He pays that $50,000. He's got to satisfy that $200,000 lien before he can sell that $500,000 house for $500,000 or whatever he ends up getting out of it. What is an example of hypothecation? An example of hypothecation would be an investor who takes out a mortgage loan to purchase an investment property. The property serves as collateral for the loan. Understand, this is how they think of you when you get a loan. They think of you as an investor, and you're going to help them in equal capacity. Equities are equal, but where equities are equal, the first in line, and you're the first one that gets to use that name, not them. So the terms have to go by your name and your terms. Make sure they're beneficial for your name and yourself. Otherwise, they're going to use your name for their benefit to your detriment. Guaranteed, they're going to have you make payments. That document itself, as we discussed yesterday, as cash, is supposed to have the value in there and is to be considered as payment. The unpaid balance of money or its equivalent. All you have to do is deposit it. Direct deposit. It's a directive. The property serves as collateral for the loan. Meanwhile, the investor collects the rental income derived from it. But if the investor defaults, the lender can initiate a foreclosure proceeding to take ownership of the property. Bottom line. Hypothecation often applies in real estate lending transactions in which a property is used to secure a loan. But it can also be used in other types of loan situations as well as investing. If you're entering into a loan agreement that includes hypothecation, it's important to understand the potential consequences if you fail to uphold your financial obligation to the lender. They're always going to consider you the borrower. That's the consequence. If you're the lender, what is the consequence? The consequence is that you lose your money that you've already loaned out. Unlock your equity. Want to use your home equity, but not sure where to start? Lending Tree can help. I'm not going to recognize them. What I'm going to or advertise them. What I'm going to recommend is, again, that you realize under the law, if they do sell that home that's been foreclosed and only $50,000 left owed on it, that's all they can claim on it. The rest that they sell it above and beyond that is known as surplus value, and it's technically yours. Make a claim on it. Little known secret. Okay. The next one I'm going to talk about is that dollar bill and the importance of those seals as it relates to that obligation on cash. Again, remember what cash is? It's all the paper documents with signatures on it. What's a birth certificate? You see, it's got a couple seals on it and a couple signatures. So pay attention. What do the symbols on the U.S. $1 bill mean? As we see here, note, position, letter, and number. That's that little B with a 3 around it, or 3 by it. And that's in regards to the plate that they use to print it. Then you've got the Federal Reserve District seal, which is the big black one, which is going to have a letter inside in the middle. And then it's going to have its correlating number alphabetically. B is the second letter of the alphabet. So if it would be A, it would be 1. If it's C, it would be 3. If it's D, it would be 4, and so on up to number 12, which is L. Then we've got the serial number. And again, you notice it starts with a B. That should correlate. Those should correlate. And then it's got 8 numbers. And then the new $1 bills also have a letter that follows after it. I do not know the consequence of this yet, but as it is for now, when it comes to what we spoke of the other day, prepaid expense, if you convert this letter to its numerical equivalent and put a 0 in front of this entire sequence, that would be a prepaid expense account. That's what you find on the back of your Social Security card. It relates to a prepaid expense account as it relates to the credits extended from the International Monetary Fund, wherein deposits were made of taxes based upon the gross domestic product of every nation involved in the UN. And then here you have the bill series. It's going to tell you what year the bill was printed down here by the just below the U.S. Treasury seal, which is then the next one. The green one is the U.S. Treasury seal. You will see it says Washington, D.C. It is not United States of America. It is United States Treasury seal. Okay. And then this bottom number again here is the note position and plate serial number. On the back, so we have 2 seals on the front, one being the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, and that is their obligation there. Okay. And then on the back, we have the Great Seal of the United States of America. So on the back is the private side. The front is the public side. So we have the public side showing the Federal Reserve System and the U.S. Treasury. That's all your public corporations and everything, the performance of functions of public office, all your commercial activities as a legal contractor using a legal name through some kind of identification system. On the back, you have the United States of America, and on the front, you have the Federal Reserve note, the United States of America. So on the back, it's without the Federal Reserve. So now we just have the United States of America showing this is the private side, and it has the Great Seal, both the front and the back. The seals on the front of the $1 do not have front and backs. They are just merely seals, one-sided. All-seeing eye, the foundation of a pyramid, showing a sturdy, solid structure, all kinds of things. And this is the way this system is structured, folks. It's structured to get you to observe things in certain ways, and if you don't, you're going to be made a fool of. And the system is consistently going to give you a hard time about I hope so. All right. So anyway, once you realize the scope of how you've been duped by using this cash system and not putting your own credit into it as the true credence to everything you do, everything they do is going to be done against you. You already know this. They already tell you you're required to register your children for school, and public education is voluntary. You already know they tell you have to have a job, and you got to have a Social Security card to get a job. Social Security is voluntary. Taxes are voluntary. You're doing everything on voluntary, and the only person allowed to reside within the zone are federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board, and the board being the Department of Commerce and the Secretary of Treasury. Seems to me everything is intended for commercial purposes. So again, that first Timothy's 10:6, I believe it is, for the root of all evil is the love of money. So if you love something more than money, then you might find a better purpose. But if your purpose in life is to make as much money as you can, you've been deceived. That's the very downfall of your nature. So anyway, that's it for tonight, folks. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. I appreciate all of your support. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And there's PayPal links for anybody who wants to share some love. And of course, remember, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you and have a good night. Bye now.